Because of Reddit, my friend's funeral was entirely paid for. I became like internet famous. I was able to change the world and improve thousands of people's lives through quitting porn, and I was able to have a voice.
The story of Alexander Rhodes, this week on Upvoted by Reddit. Welcome to episode 19 of Upvoted by Reddit. I'm your host, Alexis Ohanian. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Yoinky 2013, The Motivating Giraffe, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. All in one episode, full of motivation. Seriously, this one was a real delight. We had some fun with the music. I thought we had a really nice collection of different inspirational people. Let us know what you think, as always, in the comments on r/upvoted. This week we're going to be discussing Tom Cruise, masturbation, internet fame, and using Reddit to help loved ones. So, it only makes sense that the subject of this week's episode is the one and only Alexander Rhodes. Now, he first skyrocketed to Reddit fame as a background character with some minor IMDb acting credits, one of which was for working as an extra on Tom Cruise's Jack Reacher, where he was billed as a suspicious onlooker. Reddit ended up helping him become the second most popular actor on all of IMDb based on that credit alone. So we'll get right to Alexander Rhodes' story right after this quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. MeUndies makes really, really comfortable underwear and so much more. They create high-quality men's boxer briefs, pajamas, women's briefs, lace thongs, sweatpants, and socks. But don't take my word for it. Here's what a Redditor named Lapine Lupine wrote on the male fashion advice community. Bought these the last time this was posted. The material feels almost like stretchy silk that is thicker and more absorbent. They're easily the most comfortable underwear I own. Not a bad endorsement. Go to MeUndies.com/upvoted. and you can receive free shipping and 20% off of your first order. That's MeUndies.com/UPVOTED.
I'm Alexander Rhodes. I'm the founder of NoFap, an actor and a cat lover. I've always had an interest in film. Since I was a little kid, I would go to the store and like Barnes & Noble or different bookstores, and there would be these books just full of movie scripts. So there would be like the Star Wars trilogy, and that would be my favorite one. And I would just sit there for hours and hours in Barnes & Noble, not giving them any money, not spending any money whatsoever, but just going in there to read movie scripts. And I would do that all day, like for 7-8 hours or more. And I would just sit there and read movie scripts and act them out in my head, maybe a little bit in person too. People would kind of stare at me a little bit. And it's because my parents really didn't have a lot of money. They had me back when they were in college, and they both came from foster system, and they didn't really have financial support. So they were excellent parents. I could not ask for better parents. But when I was a kid, I kind of had to figure out how to fill my time sometimes. And so that's kind of where my interest in acting and film production began.
In college, Alexander did everything he could to learn about the film industry, which ended up leading him to an internship at a local casting director's office.
I did an internship for a company called Monster Casting. I was a casting assistant, and I would just help them with commercials and booking extras and stuff for different movies. And from there, I got my first production assistant job. So I worked on The Dark Knight Rises and some other films that were filming in my area, and I did extra work whenever they needed people. I would go and I would appear in the way in the background, 300 feet in the background in different films in Pittsburgh, and I guess this all led up to the Suspicious Onlooker incident. Alexander
is of course referring to his background work on the Tom Cruise film Jack Reacher.
The casting director that I knew needed some extras on set, and so they needed a person to walk next to Tom Cruise's car on the street during the car chase scene. So I was wearing, what I would wear any night. It was a little chilly out. I was wearing my LL Bean light corduroy jacket, and I was walking next to Tom Cruise's car when he was kind of slyly exiting the vehicle and walking to the bus stop and trying to evade the police force. Like there were 50 cop cars chasing him. And so I was kind of just walking next to the car. And so after 2 takes, the director cut, and he actually told the second AD to tell the third AD to tell the production assistant to tell somebody else to tell me to get the hell out of the shot because my coat was too light and it was drawing too much attention to myself away from the foreground into the background onto me. So they actually kind of kicked me out of the scene and made me stand like 300 feet back to the point where you wouldn't even see me at all. I was maybe just a pixel in the background. And so they did the scene over again, and Tom Cruise drove past, and then he actually cut, and he went to the director, and he was like, "Where the hell's that guy? Where was he? I like that guy. Where'd he go?" And so I saw Tom Cruise talking to the director and talking to the assistant director, and then all of a sudden, all 3 of them come up and start walking towards me. And at this point, I'm just like, "What's happening?" Because we were actually told before going on set that we shouldn't even talk to Tom Cruise. You shouldn't look at him even. And then they just came right up to me, and Tom was like, "Hey, do you want to do something?" I'm like, "Sure." And honestly, I don't even really remember what the conversation entailed. I was just kind of freaked out that Tom Cruise was sitting here talking to me. Everyone on the set was staring at me too. Like everyone's like, "What?" This guy's talking to this random extra guy. And so Tom Cruise actually kind of improvised me a part into this movie where I was there and the car would pass me and I would suspiciously onlook it. And so it was quite exciting for me, and it took place over 2 days of shooting, and it was kind of like this little bit role in the movie. And from there, I kind of just, we went our separate ways, and I went back to school for, I guess, just 1 semester. In the summer, the cast list got updated on IMDb, and all of a sudden I'm on it. And it was Alexander Rhodes as the suspicious onlooker, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my first movie, like acting, if you want to call it acting, credit. And I was really excited about it, so I posted it on my Facebook wall, and my friends just thought it was really funny. Like, I was way at the bottom, but they thought it was cool. It was a notable achievement towards my goal of getting into some real acting. And I guess a lot of my Facebook friends went to my page, and also I also was really involved in some of the sub-communities on Reddit that were involved with film. So I would go into threads like on Ask Reddit or other places like that where questions would pop up about film. And with my experience as a casting assistant and as a production assistant, I would answer people's questions because there were so many misconceptions about the film industry. And in this particular one, they were like, "Oh, how does Hollywood have people who look like they're skinny Holocaust survivors?" And I gave the truth, and I told them how that happens. It's really not that exciting. And people really liked my answer. It got a lot of upvotes. But then some people were like, "Oh, you're full of shit. You're just some guy." And I'm like, "I'm not just some guy. I've got an IMDb account with like 2 credits on it. So you can suck it." And my comment got a lot of upvotes, so it appeared at the top of the thread, and the thread itself got a lot of upvotes, and it appeared at the top of Ask Reddit. So a lot of people clicked that link that I posted to my IMDb account. And whenever the rankings updated the next week, all of a sudden I was number 5 on the cast list. So IMDb, if you didn't know this, it's ranked based on essentially how popular you are on IMDb, and that means how many people are visiting your page, like unique IP addresses or page hits itself. And I was ranked number 5, and it was Tom Cruise as Jack Reacher, and then like a few other people, Robert Duvall, Rosamund Pike, and then Alexander Rhodes, the suspicious onlooker, number 5, because I posted a comment on Reddit. I was just like, shit. I kind of freaked out a little bit. I thought I might get in trouble or something. I didn't know if Paramount would appreciate that. But I posted it on my Facebook wall again, and I was just like, it was an image, it was a screenshot of my IMDb page, or the IMDb page of Jack Reacher, and it just had my name there, and I put a little red arrow pointing to it, like as number 5 cast, just as a joke. I wasn't going to do anything with it aside from post it on Facebook. I thought it was funny, but my friends thought it was way funnier than I did. They were cracking up. They thought it was the funniest thing ever. So without any expectations, I went ahead and I posted it to R Funny. It's a really cool community on Reddit, and I guess everybody else on Reddit thought it was funny too, and they upvoted it to be the #1 story on the site.
We Redditors are known for many things, though letting jokes die quickly is definitely not one. So of course, this was just the beginning.
All of a sudden, overnight, I kind of became a symbol. In a sense, it was just a meme. It was an inside joke where I was kind of like the Chuck Norris of actors. Well, I guess Chuck Norris is an actor too, but it was different. They were just saying Alexander Rhodes is the best actor of our generation. He was great as Mill Grove football player number 53 in Perks of Being a Wallflower and Guys Standing in Background and Promised Land and other films I was acting in, and it turned into this big joke where everyone would just rave about how amazing of an actor I was, and they would visit my profile and jokes. There were millions of hits on my IMDb profile, and ultimately what happened is I became the #2 most popular actor on IMDb.com under Joseph Morgan. And yeah. Whenever the movie updated on IMDb Jack Reacher, it said Jack Reacher starring Alexander Rhodes. Also starring Tom Cruise and Rosamund Pike, but I was the first name. It went viral. It was a huge story. It was all over the internet blogs, and my phone was actually unusable because of how many people were posting on my Facebook wall, texting me, sending me an email, whatever, trying to contact me, call me in any way. I think my phone number got out or something to the point where I actually couldn't use my phone. It was on nonstop vibrate, and I couldn't actually get into it long enough to turn off the vibration feature. So my phone was locked up to the point I couldn't even use it. As a result of this, my Facebook got about 3 to 4 friend requests every second. For a period of time, life was a little bit stressful. I was still taking classes, and I would get pointed at, and I would hear whispers, and people would ask me to take photographs with them. I would try to be in the computer lab, and people would, I distinctly remember just people pointing at me, like, that's Alexander Rhodes. And then the other person would be like, who the hell is that? And then they would explain it to them. It's like, I can hear you, man, I can hear you. And so I just kind of, I'm kind of an anxious person. I'm not very social. I kind of like my own thing. I like hanging out with cats and friends. I'm not really one to appreciate being pointed at and whispered about. So for a little bit there, it was a little stressful for me. I would start wearing hoodies and just generally trying to avoid people whenever it was at its peak.
However, all this exposure did have its potential benefits as well.
So whenever you become Reddit famous for 15 minutes, a world of opportunity is presented to you. And so I had a ton of offers coming in. Again, I said my phone was unusable, but I did get emails from all sorts of managers, agents, people producing indie movies, and I had the opportunity to act in some big movies. Like one, I had a scene with Justin Long that I could have done in one of his movies. And you can imagine, I was getting thousands of inquiries every day, thousands of emails, thousands of Reddit messages, thousands of Facebook messages. It was insane and impossible to manage. And it was hard to determine, what is important, what isn't important. And my philosophy at the time is I wanted to talk to everybody. I was just so excited. I was never a popular person. I was a nerd. I was always a nerd in high school or middle school, and I never really was popular. And all of a sudden, I was very popular, and I kind of was loving it. I was loving that people wanted to talk to me, people wanted to be my friend, and I was just trying to be friends with everybody. So I did ultimately sign with a talent agency, and they hooked me up with a manager, and he helped me kind of field some of these requests. And then I ultimately went with another manager, and they were actually kind of annoyed with me, to put it quite frankly, because I wasn't really that interested in being in the media. I wasn't interested in going on television to talk about the situation. I'm a very private person. I didn't really like the situation, and they kind of were thinking that I wasn't taking advantage of it fully enough, and there was a lot of friction between me and these managers. And just to kind of go over some of the offers that I had going in, it's hard to remember them all, but there were probably at least 100 different opportunities that I could have taken. I ultimately did do a craft video because I really liked their site. I really like internet kind of focused things from the internet for the internet. So I did do a craft video. But I had numerous commercial offers, I had movie offers, I had television show offers. I know my managers were talking to Jimmy Kimmel, they were talking to Entertainment Tonight, they were talking to Ellen DeGeneres. Like I was going to go onto the Ellen show. I was going to be in movies. I had commercial prospects with Wendy's, with Dr. Pepper, with Michelin tires, and it was crazy. It was absolutely nuts, and it was a little bit just too much for me to handle at the time. I wasn't really there yet as a human being. I didn't have the experience to handle the situation, and I believe I kind of tanked it. I kind of messed up a little bit. But looking back, I have no regrets. I have no regrets. I kind of made a conscious decision that I want to finish school, and I just want to do it the right way. I want to do it not the 15 minutes of fame way. I want to do it the long, arduous, struggling actor, move to LA, wait on tables, and do it the way that most people have done it. And that's the decision I made. I'm happy I made it that way.
Some might say what Alexander, he didn't want to profit off of something he didn't work for and wanted to make sure that his future career endeavors would be truly earned. Yet, even with this in mind, he wasn't spared the negative sides of internet fame. After a word from our sponsor, we'll talk about Alexander's reunion with Tom Cruise, Hollywood's relationship with the internet, and how he founded r/nofap. This episode is brought to you by Stamps.com. These days you can get pretty much everything on demand, so why are you still going to the post office? You've got limited hours, they're a hassle, and some really long lines. Luckily, now you can get your postage on demand. Anything you can do at the post office, you can do right now from your desk with Stamps.com. You can buy and print official U.S. postage for any letter or package using your own computer and printer. And unlike the post office, Stamps.com never closes, so you can get the postage whenever you need it, 24/7. Seriously, right now, use my promo code Upvoted for this special offer. You'll get a no-risk trial and a $110 bonus offer, which includes up to $55 in free postage and a digital scale. So go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone on the top, and then type in Upvoted. You'll be saving on postage and helping to support this show. That's Stamps.com, offer code UPVOTED.
So they actually invited me to the movie premiere for Jack Reacher, and I walked the red carpet. And originally, my idea was to bring my cat as my date. So I actually wanted to put my cat into a little cat tuxedo and walk the red carpet with my cat. But I don't think I was allowed to do that. I think the theater had a no pet policy. So I ended up grabbing just some random person who was there, like not a fan of myself. Like I was really only famous online at that point. But I grabbed somebody who was there at the red carpet, really excited to see Tom Cruise, really excited to see the movie eventually, whenever it did come out. So I walked the red carpet and I grabbed a random person from the crowd, just somebody who I thought would appreciate the film. I didn't bring my girlfriend at the time because, like I said, I'm kind of a private person and I didn't really want to appear publicly with anyone. I just kind of wanted to, do my own thing, be Jack Reacher, so to speak, just kind of keep a low profile. So I went there, I walked the red carpet, I grabbed somebody, I went into the movie theater, and it premiered in, I guess it was in the South Side Works in Pittsburgh, in the city that it was filmed in. And Tom Cruise was there, as well as Christopher McQuarrie, the director of the movie. And at the beginning of the film, Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise came into the movie theater. And they were gonna, they wanted to announce the film to the audience, say a few words, thank the city of Pittsburgh for being so accommodating to the shooting, and just introduce everybody. So Christopher McQuarrie, the director of Jack Reacher, came into the theater in front of the screen with a microphone, and he said, one of the first things he said was, "Hello, Pittsburgh, we have some stars with us tonight. We have, as you know, Tom Cruise here, he's about to speak, and we have the second star of our movie, Alexander Rhodes. He's here with us tonight." And I'm just like, hey, and all of a sudden everybody turns and looks at me. And it was really weird because all of a sudden, these people had no idea who I was. And there were people trying to slyly take photographs of me. There was some guy sitting in front of me and he held his phone back behind his elbow. He twisted his arm around and was trying to discreetly take photographs. And everyone's like, oh my gosh. there's some actor here, like in the movie theater with us, and they all thought I was important, even though I wasn't. I was really funny, and Tom Cruise was there, and he didn't seem very happy about it. I think he thought I was stealing some of his thunder. The whole situation kind of stole some of his thunder. Because a lot of Redditors were sending him kind of some mean tweets and some mean messages. People were like, "Hey, Tom Cruise, you suck. You're a douche, and Alexander Rhodes is carrying your movie, and he's a much better actor than you'll ever be, you dick." Like, people would just be spam tweeting him and stuff, and I think that kind of had him have a sour viewpoint. Like, I think that, like, during the movie premiere, like, we talked during the shooting of the movie, and he was really cool then, but during the movie premiere, he kind of just didn't want anything to do with me. And I was hanging out with the director, Christopher McQuarrie, for a while afterwards, but Tom Cruise left, and he didn't say hi to me. He kind of, like, actually actively avoided me, because I was like, hey, I went to, like, one of his people, and I was like, hey, does Tom Cruise want to get a photo or something real quick, just to, it'll help you promote your film, it will help, it'll just be really funny, like, the two, whatever. And I'm not sure if he actively declined, but he kind of, like, I was right near him, and he knew who I was. I mean, the director of the movie announced it to the room, and I was right there with Tom Cruise, and he just didn't want anything to do with me. So I think he was a little bit upset that maybe I stole some of his thunder in the promotion of Jack Reacher, but I'm still happy about the situation, and I'm still very thankful to Tom Cruise for giving me that opportunity, because without Tom Cruise giving me that part in the movie, I would have never been the Suspicious Onlooker. It would have never been possible, and I have Tom Cruise to thank for that.
The funny thing is that when the movie came out, Alexander did notice something very important in the film.
I think they cut me from the movie. It didn't make the cutting room floor. They took it out, and I'm not sure if that was a decision that was made prior to the Suspicious Onlooker incident or afterwards, but they ultimately cut that part from the movie. But oh well, it was a fun ride.
Getting cut from a movie is a pretty regular occurrence. In fact, there are people we cut from Upvoted. Yet the fact that Tom Cruise would snub Alexander, even though he garnered so much press for the film, kind of rubbed us the wrong way. The only instances we could find of Mr. Cruise mentioning the subject were two singular tweets that were positive about the Suspicious Onlooker's popularity. So we wanted to find out what really happened. We contacted Tom Cruise's publicist, Christopher McQuarrie's publicist, and even Paramount's marketing department. Not only did we get turned down by all parties, but their publicists even refused to give a statement. So, r/conspiracy, have at it. As you may have already guessed, or known, this is far from Alexander's only encounter with Reddit fame. He actually created the r/nofap community as well.
NoFap is a place for people to recover from porn addiction. And what we believe is that porn can be addictive. I don't even really see it as a fully behavioral addiction. I see it as something that's artificial, something that could actually hijack your brain's reward circuitry, your dopamine reward pathway, because it's so much more vivid. It involves mostly one sense, right? Because if you're watching porn, you're really only getting the visual aspects. Most of the time, you don't want your parents or your roommate or whoever's in the area to hear you. So most of the time, you have it muted, unless you have some really good headphones. But even that's kind of risky, right? Because then you won't have warning if somebody's about to bust in. So porn really involves one sense, whereas sex involves every sense in our arsenal. So porn kind of, in a sense, hooks your brain onto the visuals, onto the very high definition, graphic, decrepit, ever escalating visuals. It's not sex, it's a depiction of sex. It's not even a depiction of sex, it's a hyper super stimuli of sex. It's not real, it's completely artificial, and it has detrimental effects, especially if you use it a little bit too much. An orgasm brings forth a flood of chemicals into your body, and if you're orgasming to a computer screen rather than a human being, you're really just beating down the path in the forest to make it easier for your brain to reach that orgasm, to reach those pleasure centers and all that through porn rather than through humans. Eventually your brain's going to start to prefer it because it knows that this is a clear path to getting what I want. With a human, you're going to have to go out and meet somebody. You're going to have to court them. You're going to have to maybe beg for it. I don't know. Depends on your situation. But for porn, it's always there and it's always readily available. It's ever or always ever escalating. You could get exactly what you want. So I founded NoFap originally as a place for people to abstain from only masturbation for a period of time, whether it be 1 week or 1 month. And it was as a result of this journal article from China that got posted on Today I Learned. And it said that if men don't ejaculate for a period of 1 week, their blood serum testosterone level goes up. And so this kind of sparked an inside joke, kind of similar to Suspicous Onlooker in the comment threads. Maybe not as big, but I saw it all over the site. There were comment threads just like, oh, have you been 1 week? Nudge, nudge, get it? So people were talking about it. And so in the Get Motivated subreddit, if you cut out masturbation, that might be a really good way to motivate yourself. I mean, it's called Get Motivated. That's why we're there. And so we figured that maybe if you abstain for a period of time and your blood serum testosterone levels go up, but not only that kind of pseudo bro science crap, but we also thought that maybe if you cut it out, you're gonna be you're gonna stop tricking your body into thinking that it's in a mated relationship, and your body's gonna wake up and it's gonna be like, you've been lying to me. My inclusive fitness isn't going up. I need to get laid, pretty much. I mean, that's really one of our primary purposes of being alive, is to have sex and propagate our genes. And it goes really into the inclusive fitness theory. So if you're not having sex, and if you stop stimulating sex through masturbating to porn, your body is going to realize that it needs to kick into overdrive to acquire that. And for human beings, that could be increased energy, increased drive, increased passion. It really goes into the sexual transmutation stuff. So that's why I founded NoFap. It was a place to abstain from masturbation for a period of time, kind of as a somewhat of a biohacking experiment. That's what I like to call it. And from there, though, we started not watching porn, right? Because if you're not masturbating, you're probably not going to be watching porn. Because I mean, who watches porn for the cinematography or the plot lines or the graphic effects? You watch porn to masturbate. So we were also abstaining from porn, and we started experiencing these tremendous benefits in our lives. So we wanted to start experimenting for longer periods of time, maybe 90 days and more frequently. So it kind of compounded rather into this huge porn recovery community, and it's the largest on the internet to this day. At the time, I didn't realize how destructive porn was to my life. I didn't even realize I was a porn addict. I didn't realize these things until well after I founded NoFap, well after I abstained for a month and I went back to porn. I didn't see it as a problem in my life until maybe 2 years after I founded it. And really, it took a lot of, I was just so busy helping other people quit porn that I kind of neglected myself, and I didn't realize that I'm relying on this thing as an emotional crutch, as something to kind of just deal with my daily life. And it was, for me, as simple as brushing my teeth. It was just something I did in the morning. At night, I did it anywhere from 2 times a day to 10 times a day. It really depended on how many emotions were coursing through my body that day. And it was like scratching an itch. And it left me with delayed ejaculation, porn-induced ED. So I didn't really have full erectile dysfunction, but I wasn't able to keep it up unless if I fantasized about porn. So I would be with another human being, and I would be ignoring them, really. I was depersonalizing them as tools with the goal of achieving sexual pleasure. I was completely throwing out any virtue that sex has. I was throwing out empathy, love, affection, intimacy, anything that's good about sex, anything that's positive, and I really made it into this one-sided race to orgasm. And during that, I would just fantasize about porn, and I would completely disconnect from who was there. I mean, to an extent, I didn't really care who was there. I just wanted to get off. And it wasn't right. And naturally, if you are behaving in this way, if you're thinking about somebody else, aside from the person you're in the room with, that's going to cause problems in the relationship. That's not healthy. And I didn't realize how detrimental it was to my life. And my life has never been better. And I don't blame all of my life problems on porn, but at the same time, I believe it was the catalyst that I needed to really propel forward through self-development. I've been exercising, I've been eating better, I've been reading books. That's something I lost to video games and Reddit, really, essentially. It's like I stopped reading books and I've started reading again, and I've never been more happy, more fulfilled, more successful than after quitting porn. And I'm just so happy I did it, and I'm here to help other people do it as well, and that's what NoFap is today.
When you take a stance on the internet encouraging people to refrain from pornography, you're clearly going to get a lot of attention for it. My friend Tim Ferriss faced a ton of controversy when he asked people to join him in a challenge of no alcohol and no masturbation for a month. It caused an uproar, covered in outlets such as the Daily Beast, New York Magazine, even Ask Men. The titles of the articles were pretty incendiary themselves, like Total Idiot Sells No Masturbation Challenge for Men, and Tim Ferriss, Bro Culture's Anti-Masturbation Crusader. This was his take when I asked him about it a few months ago.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, that one. It was a great experiment. Definitely took on a life of its own. All of the, God, it's just amazing. Like the I want to be offended liberal media had a field day with it. It was really hilarious. Not all liberal media that way, but it just, God, a lot of them just really want some. Yeah, they really want to be upset about everything. So, which I find sort of decreases the impact when you actually have something worth getting upset about. Anyway.
That's what Tim Ferriss faced with just a single month challenge. You can only imagine the kind of trolls that r/nofap has attracted.
NoFap is a lightning rod in the porn recovery, anti-porn movement. People love to come on NoFap and troll. They love to go onto NoFap, post porn links and comments. They just like to submit porn links. They'll actually private message people with disguised porn links. They'll be like, "Hey man, I've seen you're having some trouble rebooting, and so I want to help you out. Here's some motivational content," and it will be to a porn GIF or GIF image. And people really like to troll NoFap, as well as clinical psychiatrists. They like to criticize it. Some people say that porn addiction isn't real, and my response to that is I don't really care what you say, because I know it's real, and I definitely think people feel threatened by the idea that maybe excessive masturbation or even porn altogether might be not a good idea for you, or may have detrimental effects. I think that may be some of the motivation that some of the trolls are kind of really using to justify their behavior. They just are so addicted to it. They're so embedded in the system. It's like that Matrix quote that says that the people are so reliant on it that they're going to jump through hoops to believe it. So I think that many people, when it comes to porn addiction, just are so ingrained in that system that they are going to go through huge justifications. They're going to jump through the highest hoops to justify their behavior, and they're going to use that to justify them coming on and trolling NoFap and trying to knock other people down. Yeah, so NoFap has grown to be the largest porn recovery group on the internet. As of us talking today, it has 150,000 people on it or more. It gets millions of views every month. It's this hugely successful subreddit. And the stories coming out of it are incredible. People are putting porn as old as in their 60s. People are signing up for NoFap, and they actually aren't Redditors until they join NoFap. They'll actually just sign up for Reddit, only post on NoFap, and we'll have thousands of stories like that. We'll have some of the people who we were talking about earlier, the trolls who come on and post porn, they'll actually, while they're doing that, start reading some of the people's stories, and they'll be like, "Shit, this sounds just like me." And I'll have stories of some of these trolls kind of turning their lives around. They'll actually join the community, and they'll be like, "Can I be unbanned? I really want to actually do this. I want to quit porn. I want to do no PMO. I want to reboot." And I'll be like, "Sure, welcome to the community. I'm very open-minded. I'll unban people if they genuinely want to improve themselves."
And as we've seen, Alexander is all about community. After our final break, we'll talk about how Alex befriended a fellow moderator named Edify, who unfortunately passed away, and how Alexander raised the necessary funds via Reddit to make sure he could at least have a proper send-off when his family couldn't afford a funeral themselves. This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. As I mentioned earlier, MeUndies makes really comfortable clothing that looks as great as it feels. And MeUndies isn't just for guys. They launched their All of Me women's collection, a 4-piece line of underwear designed specifically for women. They have great women's briefs and lace underwear. It's really soft, not at all itchy, and it actually holds up when you wash it more than a few times. But it also seems like Redditors are really passionate about MeUndies too. One Redditor named El Presto Barba said this in the Jake and Amir subreddit: "I got a 5-pack of boxer briefs. Holy shit, they are amazingly comfortable. 69 out of 10 would recommend." So that would obviously be a 70 out of 10 with rice. Also, if any of you listening have enjoyed MeUndies or any of the other sponsors of Upvoted, please let us know in the comments /upvoted because we'd like to use your testimonial in a future show. For free shipping and 20% off of your first order, go to MeUndies.com/upvoted. That's MeUndies.com/UPVOTED.
So Jared Kuntz, his username was Edify. So Edify means to take something and to improve upon it, either intellectually or morally. And so he went by Edify on the internet, on Reddit, and other sites, and I think that really summarizes his personality. He was somebody who spotted problems in the world and would do anything in his power in his own way to improve it. So this wasn't just something he did online, he did it offline too. There are so many stories of him pulling his friends out of bad situations, helping them. Like I know a friend of his lost their job and he kind of put them up in his house and kind of got them back on their feet. For myself personally, he was just such a good friend. Like he was just always there for you. If you were having trouble of any kind, if you just wanted somebody to vent to, somebody to run an idea past, somebody to just be there for you, you always knew that Jared Kuntz was there for you. He was the best friend to everybody he was friends with. It was really weird. Like everybody felt like they were very close to Jared. He was a moderator of at least a dozen subreddits. Like he would go in and he would just make them so much better. He would grow them into what they are today. Like I don't think any of these subreddits would be as popular as they are without Jared's direct work. So Jared kind of made it a job really for himself. Like he had a job, but anytime he wasn't at his day job, he would be promoting his subreddits and he would be making phone calls, trying to connect with the publicists for these actors on the shows and setting up AMAs and moderating and creating roles and really tailoring and branding all of the communities that he hosted. So he was, the two biggest I would say are most of the actors for each of those shows. He set up AMAs on there, and many of those actors know him personally. It's crazy. Like the people talking about him, like everyone knows Jared Kuntz, and he was just such a selfless person who never asked for anything in return. So I actually met Jared. He connected with me after my whole Suspicous Onlooker debacle, and he connected me with a friend of his, Rick Carr, who runs a podcast, and he was like, "Hey, I think you guys would be really cool to meet each other." So first, I guess I just want to say that Jared's the type of friend who's just like a serial networker. Like he just wanted all of his friends to be friends with each other. He just wanted this big, happy family. He was just always introducing you to somebody else that he knows. And he was like a lot of people in the film industry are very protective of their contacts. They're like, "Oh, I know Alexis Ohanian," or something, and I have their phone number here. Haha, like they'll brag about it or something like that. And like Jared wasn't like that. He was like, "Oh, I know this actor from Breaking Bad. I think you guys make really good friends. It seems like you guys have a lot in common, so I'm going to put you in contact with him." And he was like that to all of his friends.
Sadly, Jared tragically died in a house fire.
Jared died on February 28th, 2015, on a Saturday, early in the morning. So he was in his house, and there was a fire. I think it was his furnace or something, and he was asleep, we believe, and he succumbed to the fumes. So for anybody listening, please buy a carbon monoxide detector if you don't have one, but a smoke detector, just be safe. And this thing happens all the time. It's really sad. People aren't prepared. I myself was in a house fire last year. So I actually was on the third, I was being the unimpressive, average guy that I am. I was, of course, crashing at my dad's place. After graduating, I was still living with my parents at the age of 23 or 24, however, I think I was 24. And I was in my dad's attic, and there was a fire, and it was on the ground floor. And by the time I learned about it, it was freaking scary, right? Like there was smoke billowing up my staircase, like to the point where it was filling my room in the attic. And there, like it's a windy, crazy house. Like it's hard to get out of there, even like without the smoke. It's a little bit treacherous. So it was really hard to escape. So you could tell where my priorities are because the first thing I grabbed, and by this point, I guess it's all started out. My vision was a little hazy, and I started like feeling sleepy. And I think that was like carbon monoxide or something. And and I just was like feeling a little delirious, and I was rubbing my eyes. I thought it was my vision, and it turned out to be smoke fumes. And then the smoke started billowing out, and then I started hearing screaming finally, and that's when I realized, oh shit, this is serious. This is, I mean, anything that I've ever learned about fires at that point went out the window. I didn't remember shit. I was an idiot. I was just pacing around. First thing I did is I went to a window and got a breath of fresh air, and I thought about jumping out of the window because I didn't know how I was going to escape. But you can really tell where my priorities in life are, because the first thing I grabbed was my cat, who was sitting with me at my desk, and I grabbed my cat, and then the second thing I grabbed was my external hard drive, and then I escaped. So with my cat, I was carrying my cat out, and my cat, he was always like, he actually died, not in the fire, he died about a year afterwards of natural causes, bless his cat soul, but he's a really smart cat. So what I did is I opened the window and I stuck him out of the window so he could get a breath of air, and I think he took a breath. It's hard to tell with cats. I took a breath of air myself, and then holding my cat like really tight. But he actually knew something was up. He was like, save me. Like I would imagine most cats, if you grab him like that, would probably like claw at you or something or try to get out. But I feel like my cat knew that I had his best interest in my heart, and he just was like, please rescue me, please get me out of here. So I ran out of this house with my cat. I had to kick out a window and like to escape. And so I kicked out a window and we took a breath, and it was terrible. Like my face was a little burned, and I got treated for smoke inhalation, and my cat was all screwed up. Like he had white fur and it was all dirty. And so I guess really the whole point of this story that I'm telling you is that I wasn't expecting it. I never was scared of fires. I would have a fire drill at work or at school growing up, and I would just kind of roll my eyes and be like, wow, what's the freaking point of this? This doesn't seem very useful. I just, if there's a fire, you get out. But I just want to say that whenever you actually are in a fire, first off, you have the adrenaline. Also, you have those carbon monoxide fumes. Those make you stupid. Like, you don't know what the hell's going on. And so my first reaction was, oh crap, I better jump out of this, 35-foot high window to escape. Like I wasn't thinking clearly. And so I just urge people to get like detectors, and if you live on a top floor like that, get a fire ladder and rehearse. And what really sucks is that everything I'm talking to you about today, I talked about with Jared. I was like, dude, I was in this fire. We talked about it at length. And I escaped from the fire. I barely escaped. Like, I could have died in that fire. It was terrible. It was scary. And I'm very grateful to be alive and experiencing existence today. It almost ended. I could have easily died in that fire. And it just boggles my mind that me and Jared were talking about this. And then he's the one who ended up dying in a fire. And that it really just crushes me thinking about it. I try not to think about it too much, but I mean, it's terrible. I just wish that I was like, I wish I made him buy a freaking carbon monoxide detector. Even if I had mentioned it to him, like, hey, you should get this, I should have like mailed him one or something. In a sense, I kind of feel slightly responsible for it because it's completely preventable. And what happened is he was asleep, and it happened in the morning, like whenever, I think it was like 4 or 5 a.m. And he was fast asleep when this fire lit, and by the time he woke up, he already got too much of the carbon monoxide, and they found Jared's body by the front door. And he was, and that's the worst part of it. He almost escaped. He was by the front door, and I'm sure he was trying to open it. But I mean, like I said, the smoke just ruins you. He passed out by the front door and died there. It just breaks my heart that happened. It's terrible. And so after it happened, I guess we were all grieving around the United States. Jared had friends everywhere. Jared had friends in New Jersey. Like Rick Carr and Sarah Alfiero, like our mutual friends, and people were grieving around the United States. And it wasn't really that big of a story on the subreddit yet, but I guess another friend of his, Mike Reeves, which I didn't know him at the time, but we ended up getting to know each other really well during this situation. He's a mod of Breaking Bad as well. And so I think it was announced there, and I knew about it on Saturday, but on Sunday, I was talking to my mom on the phone. She lives out in Seattle, and I told her about this. And I told her that my friend died, and I guess how any son would tell their mom if a friend died. We were talking about it, and I told her. I mean, I think she knew who he was, but I reinforced the ideas. I guess I was just telling her that he has all this involvement on Reddit and how we originally met. And she's like, well, you know what? If she obviously knew about the suspicious onlooker thing, and she knows that Reddit is capable of doing incredible things. And she's a very high tech mommy for her age. I mean, she's not old, but she browses Reddit sometimes. I think, and it was her idea. This whole campaign to raise money for Jared's funeral was my mother's idea. She's like, if Jared was such a big part of these subreddits, maybe you should try doing some sort of crowdfunding campaign. And I was like, damn, that's a really good idea, Mom. And the reason, I thought it was such a good idea because it was like the only ray of sunshine in just such a dark and negative situation. Like it was the only positive thing that I could imagine doing. So what I did is I contacted Jared's sister through Facebook, and I was like, "Hey, my name's Alex. I don't know if you know me, but this is who I am. This is how I know Jared, and I'm wondering if the family would be open to something like this." And all I could promise you is $200 or something. Like I could only promise you whatever I myself can donate to this campaign. Like that's it. From there, it's really out of my hands. I promise you that I would do my best to promote it and to try to urge people to donate. But all I was able to promise them was $200, and I said anything more than that would be a blessing, something that isn't expected. I don't want to get your hopes all high and then have it all flat. So I just want to let you right now know that I want your permission to post this, and I'm wondering if that money would be useful to you in this situation. And I was just asking him, basic questions, and then that's whenever I found out. I guess her name's Jamie, and she put me in contact with Ed, who's Jared's dad, and his mother, Anna. And I talked to them, and it turns out that they're on disability. They're on a fixed income, essentially. They have no savings to fall back on. They could not afford this. And I mean, well, they couldn't afford this emotionally, first off. Just losing your son is just, I can't imagine. But also, they just flat out couldn't afford this. I mean, if we didn't pull through and raise this money, I think that either their sister would somehow have to go. I don't know how she would have paid for it, but she would have been in a better place to pay for it. But I mean, I think that it might have been like a state kind of funeral. It might have just not even like a funeral. It would have been like, oh, we're gonna just burn this and send you a bag of ashes. And I'm sure it would have been something like that. And it really broke my heart to hear that. But at the same time, it really motivated me. And I really wasn't expecting the campaign to be as successful as it was, but I had really high hopes. So I went ahead and I posted a thread. Well, actually, I contacted our mutual friend, Rick, because I didn't want to be the sole person, accountable for the money. I wanted people to know that this is kind of a collaborative effort. I'm working with the family, and I'm working with Rick Carr, who actually isn't really much of a Redditor, but he's just another friend of Jared's. And so I talked with Rick, and I was like, hey, can you post this notice on some other sites? And I wrote up a notice, and I posted it on Breaking Bad, and then I messaged the mods of Breaking Bad. And I'm not sure which I did first, but ultimately I ended up verifying that this money is indeed going to the family of Jared Kuntz, one of their mods. And I mean, at first people didn't even believe that Jared died. They thought it was a giant hoax. They thought it was either me just trying to cash out, or they thought it might have been Jared just who didn't want to use Reddit anymore, and just to stage his own death to profit or something. So people were really highly skeptical because there was no obit, there was no news story about it. The news story was man dies in fire. It didn't say his name, or we didn't release it. So at first, I mean, we did get donations, but it was kind of hard to prove that. I was like, guys, I wish this wasn't real. I wish it was a joke. And what I did really is I think that just the moderator approval, because another one of Jared's friends, Mike Reeves, kind of vouched for it. He talked to the family too and realized, oh, they're working together. So he told the other mods that it's legit. then for the community, I was like, look, guys, I know there's no news story about this yet. Whenever there is one, I'll post it. But for now, all I could do is stake my entire reputation on this. That's all I could do. That's the only assurance that I can give you right now that this is real. If I don't give the money to his parents, I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Grab your pitchforks. I'm a relatively public person at this point. You know who I am. This money's going to the right place. And I think people thought that was enough, and thankfully they started donating. And I was completely taken back, both myself and the family. I was in communication with the family the entire time, so I would give them multiple times a day updates regarding the campaign. And I was just so surprised. It kind of exploded. So the initial goal was, I think it was $3,000 or $6,000 or something. I thought that would be enough because what I did is I called the city that he lived in, Topeka, Kansas, and I called a few funeral homes. And I was like, how much would it be for like the bare bones funeral? Like, and I tried to get an average, and I think I set the goal at $6,000 or something. And the family got back from the funeral home, and the freaking goal was the invoice was 13 something thousand bucks. That was insane. What a rip. The invoice was so incredibly high, and it wasn't like an extravagant funeral. It was a very basic funeral. I think the prices I got were for a cremation. But Jared's family, and I completely get it, they couldn't bear the thought of their son who died in a fire having their body burned. I guess. And, that makes sense to me. I was sensitive to that, and I went ahead and I raised the funding goal to 13,200 something. And I went ahead and I posted a photograph of the invoice and some proof on the threads, and people started donating in droves. It was incredible. Our highest donation came from a guy named Liam from England, I believe, and he donated, I believe, $722 to the campaign. And that was just, and that actually put us over, like, that was the last donation that we needed, and that met our goal of 13,200 something bucks.
What's unique about this is that most of the people who donated, including myself, had never actually met Jared in person.
From my understanding, most of the people who donated didn't know him. I mean, many people who did know him donated as well. His offline friends and family did donate money, but the vast majority of it came from Redditors who never met him in person, never talked to him. I mean, I've never actually met Jared in person. And I think that online friendships are just as valuable as offline friendships. I really do. We live in a digital age, and it's just incredible that you can connect so deeply with people that you've never met in person. And I think that the Reddit community is a testament to that. Reddit is a giant community, and we care about our own. Reddit paid for one of their highly esteemed moderators' funerals. And I mean, if Reddit isn't a community, then I'll eat my shoes, because it's just as much the community, if not more of the community, than the community that I live in Pittsburgh. Like I don't really talk to my neighbors. I don't participate in community events, and from my understanding, they're rather small. But I mean, Reddit is a true community, and I think we really look out for each other in every way that you can do that online.
I couldn't agree more. What I love about Alexander's story is that he had so many different, unique experiences and utilized each one of them individually for a great deal of different endeavors. He's also someone that understands that being in a community is about being there for one another and giving back. On last week's episode, we gave you all a Ulysses bucket list challenge after hearing Yonki 2013's story. The challenge was, if you saw someone who's in need of a boost on Reddit, reach out and give them some words of encouragement. Then, let us know what happened on the r/upvoted community. So, a Redditor who goes by Lazy Jim, that's LAZIEJIM, wrote this. Love this episode. Absolutely fantastic stories that show how the little things we often take for granted can mean the world to someone else. On a separate note, despite everything in me telling me I didn't have time, I took Nothing's suggestion to try to help someone in need on Reddit, and I couldn't be happier I did it. Despite being absolutely swamped at work, I convinced myself that I'm not too busy to help someone else in need, so I took a quick trip over to r/depression to see if I could find someone I could help. An hour later, and I realized I just spent an hour reading other people's issues and responding with what I thought might help. I actually felt pretty incredible to think about how easy it all came to me, and I'm looking forward to making this a habit. I can't even begin to describe how happy reading things like this makes me. This is exactly what I think all of us here at Reddit hope the platform can be used for, to really actually spread empathy. And it's not because of us, we keep the lights on, it's because of users like you, just regular people, just anyone in the world who, with a little bit of time and some text over the internet, can make a huge impact in some other person. And I hope just me reading this inspires at least a couple more of you to go do something else awesome for a stranger. It doesn't have to be on Reddit, that'd be nice, but do it anywhere. And I hope that this story, Alexander Rhodes' story, is just one more layer that helps us get a little bit of a better perspective on our fellow human beings, all of our weirdness, all of our quirkiness, all of our humanity that we share. And that's what we're trying to do with this podcast. So I'm thrilled you all have been enjoying it. Jeez, we're going to hit 1 million downloads soon. It has been amazing. So thank you as always for joining us. If you haven't yet, please leave us a review on iTunes or Soundcloud or really wherever you like leaving reviews for podcasts you listen to. Tell some friends. Make sure you subscribe so that it's waiting for you every time you pick up your phone or wherever you listen to your podcast, it's there. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention you should subscribe to Upvoted Weekly, which is the weekly newsletter of all the greatest things on Reddit you probably didn't see on the front page. Actually, very sure you didn't see on the front page. It's been pretty well received by Redditors over the last few weeks, and the team over here has had a lot of fun putting it together. So check that out. And in the words of one of our guests from last week's episode, I'll be back.